In 1859, English naturalist Charles Darwin published findings that challenged the very notion of what it meant to be human. So, backtrack from that bold statement, we'll get there in a moment, to 1837. Charles is a strapping 28-year-old gentleman already among the scientific elite, traveling the world on board the HMS Beagle. While in the Galapagos, a series of islands off the coast of South America, he noticed 12 different species of finches that seemed remarkably similar to mainland finches, and yet remarkably fit for their respective environments. This was rather strange because, as mentioned in The Origin of Species, there is nothing in the conditions of life, in the geological nature of the islands, in their height or climate which resembles closely the conditions of the South American coast. In fact, there is considerable dissimilarity in all these respects. So if these species and the ones on the mainland had been independently created, they should have borne little resemblance to each other. But, had some South American finches found themselves on the islands and adapted to their environment, the Galapagos birds might make some more sense. So Darwin, influenced by the work of Thomas Malthus, got to hypothesizing. Darwin hypothesized that if species grew beyond the number of organisms that the environment could support, that of course the weakest would be the ones to bite the dust, leaving the strongest to repopulate. So, whichever heritable genes were found among those members most suited to the environment would become more prominent in a population. Now, there's a little bit of implied subtext in Darwin's finding that all life came from other different life, since, well, humans are life. What does this mean about people? Well, in 1871, Darwin published The Descent of Man, dealing with where we as a species came from. He prefaces the book by saying, "The sole object of this work is to consider firstly whether man, like every other species, is descended from some pre-existing form." Darwin asserts rather straightforwardly this time that humans had indeed descended from older, more rudimentary life, specifically an apish common ancestor we share with chimps. Suddenly, mankind was on the same plane as all the other beasts, which acted out of instinct and without reason or moral contemplation. This left us to question what man's most basic form was when he was without society, and how we might overcome our primitive instincts, if indeed we should. Authors, when dealing with this question, generally had two contending viewpoints. The first, taken from Jean-Jacques Rousseau, was that man was a gentle savage, a cooperative social creature, and that most evils of greed and power arose out of civilization. One example of Rousseau's ideas on human nature in the modern day is Robert Heinlein's 1955 novel Tunnel in the Sky. Earth has been spared a disastrous lack of food and resources a la Malthus by way of teleportation to foreign planets. Rod Walker, a high school student training to become a colonist, is sent to a foreign planet for 2 to 10 days as his final exam. If he survives, he passes. However, 10 days go by without any contact, and it dawns on him that he and his group are all alone. So a group of 75 teenagers with no access to technology band together to brave the conditions of this harsh new world. Rod, at first averse to politics and leadership, learns to accept the role as leader, and the group thrives as a result of their organization. The other popular idea about the nature of mankind is taken from Thomas Hobbes. Hobbes believed that the life of man in his bestial anarchy was solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In this viewpoint, man is an animal motivated firstly by primal instincts. Published just a year before Tunnel in the Sky, and in stark contrast, The Lord of the Flies is a work that takes the Hobbesian point of view. It features a slew of boys from England, the very same England that prided itself on being the pinnacle of civilized society, who find themselves stranded on a deserted island. Their initial outlook is positive. The island has fresh water, edible fruits, and feral pigs to hunt. The boys establish a democracy, and Ralph, their elected leader, informs them it's a good island. Until the grown-ups come to fetch us, we'll have fun. However, things soon begin to break down. Fear of a beastie begins to grow among the little ones and culminates among the group until one night, while the others engage in a ritual to ward off the beast, one boy named Simon attempts to inform the others that the so-called beast is actually a dead parachutist, but is murdered in the chaos as he emerges from the forest. His death represents the loss in safety and knowledge that is present in a well-developed society. The situation does not much improve from there. Jack, head of the choir boys, defects from the group, taking at first a few and then nearly all of Ralph's followers through fear and violence. With the presence of cooperation gone, Jack's group takes resources from Ralph, including Piggy's glasses. When Ralph and Piggy go to confront Jack's tribe, one boy knocks a boulder off the cliff and crushes Piggy, eliminating the voice of rationality. Finally, Jack's tribe sets fire to the island in an effort to kill Ralph, who is the voice of order, the most fundamental element of society. However, the fire attracts the attention of a naval officer, who intervenes just as the boys are about to catch up to Ralph. He is dismayed that a bunch of innocent English schoolboys could so quickly be reduced to savages. Golding proposes that we are in fact animals, but we are only able to dress up our vices, and that no amount of civilizing will be enough to purge us of our inner demons. Darwin himself had his own views on the implications on what it meant to be human, and was well aware of all the strings attached to his theories. While Malthus argued that giving out aid to the poor and needy would only worsen their condition in the long run, and exaggerate the cycle of misery, as he called it, in The Descent of Man, Darwin argued, "With savages, the weak in body or mind are soon eliminated, and those that survive commonly exhibit a vigorous state of health. We civilized men, on the other hand, do our utmost to check the process of elimination. No one who has attended to the breeding of domestic animals will doubt that this must be highly injurious to the race of man." But he goes on to say, "Nor could we check our sympathy, even at the urging of hard reason, without deterioration in the noblest part of our nature. And that, perhaps, is what it means to be human. To acknowledge that we are beasts by our nature, but in defiance of both our bestial urges and our self-interested reasoning, to choose to act on those experiences and emotions which are unique to our species, and to thrive regardless."